Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Natalie, and I'm an energy intuitive that is able to look at the consciousness forecast, if you will, kind of like a weather forecast, but I look at how the collective is impacted emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically, and spiritually, or how all of these areas could be impacting you on an individual level. So, yeah, we're going to be looking over February and let's get into it. I want to welcome you all back to another month with me, February 2025, which is an interesting, or actually, I'm going to take from conversations I have with a dear friend that things can get pretty robotic and meaningless when we continue to use the same word over and over again. So I'm going to say February can be fascinating because it introduces energy of disengagement. Now, what I mean by that is, well, first off, if you are new to me, I encourage you to look back starting from February of last year. The audio sucked, and I will admit that. But for you to make logical sense of what is happening now, it could assist you in watching the videos over the course of the year because one of them may resonate where you're at now. And so this month, we are introducing the energy of disengagement. Now, what does that mean? So, the main phrasing that came through for the overall month is to maintain the higher frequencies, move into the unidentified self. So I'm going to repeat that. To maintain the higher frequencies, move into the unidentified self. So what does that mean, right? Because, there's a lot of talk about, or I shouldn't even say talk, but many people identify in a lot of things, right? That's partially why I struggle to identify as a psychic medium, as even practitioner is kind of hard for me, but I mean, I am putting the esoteric studies to practice. So that's why I make it a focus for people to understand this is where I'm getting my practices from, to make it less about me and more about the study. So, it's easy to identify and stuff, but in order to maintain the higher frequencies is to unidentify. So, what that means is, at least from the month that we're experiencing, is to detach from emotions. Now, I had to really do some sifting with that because there was such back and forth with perspectives of this. And that's part of the psychic world, is being attuned to the back and forth, even in our own mind. I talk about that in January, but in this past January, but what this means is to detach from emotions that you identify with, that lower your vitality, that lower your mentality, and see them as separate from you. Okay, so seeing them as separate beings from you that are here to, educate you, but to know that they're going to be a part of us. We're not saying that we are going to sever anything from that. We are saying we're going to get better in control of it and understand it versus being manipulated by it. Okay? So, how do we do that? Well, it's really interesting because it's so easy to blame others when we're feeling manipulated, when we're feeling controlled, when we're feeling a certain way. We are feeling a certain way. And that's why a lot of stuff is like, out there saying, nobody can make you feel a certain way. I have to argue that, okay, but they also have to take accountability for their words and how it could be insensitive to how, to what my experience is. And so, yes, we have to find the balance in between. Um, but to be aware that it's not necessarily them manipulating you, it's your thoughts, your emotions, your perspective that's manipulating you. And so, how do you get in control of that? Well, you disengage. Okay? And that could even be on even the rose-colored glasses perspective. Like, let's not even talk about just the negative. Let's talk about also the positive. How, those who are seeing the world with rose-colored glasses and that nothing bad happens, or, they're the one, and, but it's not working just yet, but, and they start kind of going back and forth. I work with couples, I work with people in relationships. And so it's interesting to see, okay, well, have you stepped back and looked at how your own perceptions of these emotions are attaching to an outcome that might not even be in existence yet? Are you attaching to a vision that has potential, but it's all about how you nurture it, how you take care of it? Okay? So these are all examples, and I'm challenging you to apply them into your everyday life, because we're out in the world, it's not just singular, it's not just going to be affecting, what I'm talking about today, but some people can be so literal that I have to make sure that I say that, where you are taking the opportunity to expand what I'm saying and applying it into your everyday situations and circumstances. And so now what I want to talk about is just the disengagement process is so important because, well, there were several things that came to mind while I was, recording this video. I'm no joke, about 6 times, but because of the whiplash, it was so challenging that what I learned in all of it, what was the most consistent, is that the fighter who depletes the quickest and ends up getting, in a sense, conquered, if you will, is the one that exerts the most emotion. That even goes with an argument. The one that is putting so much more emotion into it is the one that depletes the quickest. So just think about that in everyday life when with all the uproars that's happening, protests, just even arguments in the most, minute degree in our everyday walk of life. I encourage you to step out of it, in a sense, to a point where, and I know it's hard, but to recognize when you're starting to, I know adrenaline can kind of cloud that perception, but when we are in anger, or when we are experiencing anger, when we're experiencing frustration, resentment, we're feeling like an injustice, we're feeling a certain way. And these are all important for us to know about ourselves, so that we can see, where do we feel, or where are we experiencing an injustice within ourselves as well? Where are we not hearing even our internal world? They're not hearing me, and so that feels like, my voice isn't being heard. And so the more you give power to your inner self that's screaming and getting us to feel a certain way, we check it and we say, hey, whoa, I'm feeling this way. And so I want to take care of that part of me inside and say, hey, I see me. I see this aspect. Okay, younger me, let's go take a walk. Let's go disengage from this and really listen to what I'm feeling. We can, well, I will say, in the energy, there is no going back. There is no going back. The past is gone. There's also people who are unaware of how history repeats itself. And so disengaging allows us to give us an opportunity to reflect and see, are we continuing the same cycles? Are we continuing the same patterns? Whether that's in society or whether that's in our internal world or our, personal everyday patterns and cycles. So it's important to take a break, disengage, assess, talk to those parts that are calling on us, the anger, the resentment, perhaps disgust and disdain, the injustices within us, not feeling heard, not having a voice. Listen to those aspects. Give them a voice. And I don't mean outwardly. You could even do something as simple as writing things down. Writing things down and saying, I see you and this is how you're feeling. Give yourself that voice. Okay? Now, I wanted to, what was going through also was this word inspiration, to inspire healing. This is the time to inspire healing, but I wanted to break down, what does inspiration mean, right? And when I broke it down, so it comes down to the Latin word or Italian word, let's look, because I forgot right now, inspirare, which means to breathe. So can you breathe into these and inspire these emotions to transmute into its opposite? So if we're feeling fear, can you breathe into it? Circulate that energy by maybe going for a walk, doing breath work. Just simply going outside and getting that fresh air. Getting breath, getting air, that element air into these stagnant areas that are in us and give them some filtration, some lightness, which could inspire and breathe into something new, which could be joy, which could be love, which could be something else entirely that brings about more vitality. And that's what we want to really sink into, is this sense of vitality. And so the other thing that came in was, and I should say that it shouldn't come in, it's not new. It's just that this month on a mass scale is introducing drop into the heart. Many practitioners, astrologers, anybody who is on the healing journey knows about the breath work, knows about dropping into the heart. And when we're in fight or flight and we are running a lot of fear, scarcity, we're running a lot of emotions that put us into that part of the brain that we're in survival mode. Dropping into the heart isn't easy. It's not easy. And so one way, or several ways I actually wrote down for you to connect to the heart, is to begin in just seeing if you can quiet yourself enough to feel your electrical current, to feel what pumps the heart, to feel your electrical current, the flow of it, the flow of that. And if you are struggling with that, maybe go for a walk and get that heart rate up and feel it pumping. Actually tune into it. You can meditate on the heart energy. You can put your hand over your heart and you can tune into this very quietly. You can imagine that you're cleansing and clearing a flow of water that has been muddied up, dammed up, and watch a rush of energy flowing out of those areas and breaking apart the stagnation. And then dropping back into the heart, doing activities that, or being a part of conversations and connections that foster joy, peace, acceptance, stability, and calm. Now, again, these aren't concepts. These aren't practices that are new. They're very ancient in a way. And yet we get sidetracked. We get distracted. Big distractions now. And we've overcomplicated our lives. And so simplify, find things that foster joy, peace, acceptance for even what is. And it's hard to accept for things of what is right now. And also, you can find moments in the day where you can learn what acceptance is. And even if we don't like something and how things are going in the conversation, in the world stage, whatever that is, it's time to come into the state of acceptance for what we are capable to do and what we, the serenity prayer in a way. Grant me the serenity to accept what I have no control of and to guide me into having courage to take the step forward to making the change that I do have control of. I twisted it up for you, the serenity prayer. And so that's the other thing that I really want to, before, I end the session today, is to come into awareness. If you consider yourself an empath, do you know how powerful you are? You are the one that can completely unidentify an emotion. You can feel their stuff. And human design will tell you which ones are the true empaths and which aren't. Which are the ones that are more defined in emotion and which are the ones that, are more influenced by emotion. So I'm just looking down at what I wrote. Understand the root of the emotions. I was in a conversation with somebody yesterday who was looking to find a place of acceptance, perhaps maybe make change, but to see if they can open and expand somebody's mind who was protesting. And they went up to a person and said, have you ever taken the time to get to know the person that you're fighting against? And the individual said, no. And they said, well, have you ever thought about doing that before you make these judgments or opinions or you are inciting fear in them? And they said, no, because what are you just trying to get me to? Are you just trying to get me to feel sorry for them? And at some point, you can do all you can to expand somebody's consciousness, expand somebody's mind. And also we do have to know when to disengage. But what it brought me to think about is how these lower emotions are tricking the brain, manipulating us to think a certain way. And one of them is judgment. And then it came into having an opinion. And for those who know me in my personal life, opinions were really a stronghold, in my life. And coming out of it has been so freeing. Coming out of stagnation of opinion, so rigid in opinion, has been so freeing. So coming back to the original statement of, the unidentified self is what holds you in the higher frequencies, right? And so just to think about this, opinion is a judgment formed. A judgment formed. Just right there alone tells you judgment is in there, which anchors you down. It's a judgment formed or a conclusion reached, especially based in evidence. And so when I think about that conversation with somebody wanting to expand another's consciousness, where did this individual get their evidence if they're saying they never got to know another person, but yet they have such a strong opinion about something? So an opinion is a judgment formed or a conclusion reached, especially based on evidence, that does not produce knowledge or certainty. That does not produce knowledge or certainty. So opinion is conjecture, what one thinks, which doesn't mean it's rooted in reality. It doesn't mean that it's rooted in truth, because it's formed in the mind. Now, we can argue back and forth about that, but, the root word is opinari, which is to think and to believe, and people will die for their beliefs. I know I look forward to the day where people start to disengage from belief systems that disempower themselves. And I look forward to witnessing people moving in a direction where they unidentify and unattach from belief systems that are so outdated and perhaps in a way truly not in existence. They're just holding on to what's comfortable. I look forward to seeing people move out of that. I don't know about you, but that's the vision I'm going to hold. That's the vision, that's the prayer, that's the thought, and that's the words I'm going to hold. So drop into your heart, get into compassion, find ways to connect with people who have a commonality with you. Commonality, if we're talking about emotions, if we're fighting on two different arguments, or we're fighting this argument, whatever the argument you find yourself in, if one is arguing this and one is arguing that, what's the common emotion? It's anger. Hey, I see we're both running anger. Okay, I'm not liking that I'm feeling angry. I'm going to disengage. And not necessarily walk away, but I want to get to the root of what stifles this. Is it fear? Because we all know, at least many people know, that anger is a secondary to fear. So now we're all in fear. What are we all in fear about? Well, we're all feeling scared because of the uncertainty of getting to know someone, the uncertainty of having a new experience, the uncertainty of this, the uncertainty of that. So now we're running fight or flight. And we're not dropping into the heart of compassion, of acceptance, of joy, authenticity. So I just want you all to consider this and find ways to maybe map out how you want to think, how you want to feel, how you want to act and behave, and see if how you are thinking, feeling, acting, and behaving is in alignment with what you wrote down. You are the one that can make change. And as I mentioned in January, Neptune is in Pisces, which can create a lot of confusion, a lot of illusion, delusion. It can create a lot, especially at the final degrees, because it's getting us to think about all the possibilities so that we can begin the new dream. So what I encourage you to do is begin the new dream in how you want to be aligned with communities or be aligned with energies, collaboration that are heart-centered, that are for what you preach. If you preach love and acceptance, then you damn well better align your behaviors with it. So, thank you for staying with me, and we'll see you in March. Take care. Bye for now.